Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are tackling something that is literally so universal, yet absolutely incredibly frustrating, and that's study burnout. I mean, if you've ever felt completely drained by your study sessions, well, get ready. We're going to completely restructure how you approach learning right from the ground up.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever spent 4 straight hours just staring at your notes, meticulously reading every single line, feeling like you totally mastered the material, only to walk into an exam and realize your mind is completely blank? Like you don't actually remember a single thing? No way, right? Well, if you're nodding your head right now, understand something absolutely crucial. This explainer is 100% for you. We have all been there. Sitting at a desk, surrounded by highlighters, feeling incredibly productive, but actually retaining absolutely nothing.
So to fix this whole mess, we're drawing directly from a really fantastic resource today. It's called How to Study Like a Genius, a brilliantly insightful guide by Shadow Books. This is basically the ultimate guide to breaking study burnout and building better memory. And throughout this explainer, we'll be using its core insights to completely dismantle those ineffective habits you've probably been relying on and replace them with strategies that, actually work.
All right, Section 1, the illusion of learning. Are you studying or just busy? Okay, let's dive right into this. Let's run through 5 diagnostic questions to really test your habits. Number 1, do you actually learn for an hour, or are you just kind of busy for an hour? Second, why does highlighting feel so safe when you can't even explain the concepts out loud? Third, are you avoiding testing yourself because you're secretly terrified of finding out your own knowledge gaps? Fourth, do you truly believe you're just not a math person, or are you maybe relying on a completely broken system? And fifth, take away the notes. What's actually left in your head?
Now, if those questions just made you squirm a little bit, take a deep breath. Honestly, the problem is not you. You aren't lazy, and you definitely aren't lacking intelligence. The simple reality here is that you were just never taught how your brain actually works. And that's exactly what we're going to fix today. See, we so often confuse being busy with actual learning. It's like a giant trap. You can sit with a book open for 6 hours straight, but if your brain is passive, you retain nothing. Zero. Actual learning, according to our source, is measured strictly by what you can actually recall on demand. It's not about the hours spent just sitting passively in a chair.
Moving on to Section 2, familiarity versus true memory, the danger of the highlighter. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is
How the book explains that rereading and highlighting create this phenomenon called familiarity. And familiarity is essentially a psychological trick. Your brain recognizes the words on the page simply because you've seen them before, right? And that simple recognition completely tricks you into thinking you actually know and understand the material. But here's the absolute critical flaw with that. Familiarity completely disappears the exact second you are put under pressure. Poof, gone.
Familiarity is that warm, cozy, safe feeling you get when looking at a heavily highlighted page. I mean, it feels super productive and secure. But true memory? True memory is the strict ability to explain those concepts completely from scratch, without looking at your notes at all. If the book is closed and you can't explain a single concept from that page, well, you don't have true memory. You really only have familiarity.
Which brings us to Section 3, the power of testing, the neuroscience of struggle.
So, why do we actively avoid testing ourselves? Well, the source material clearly shows that we stay in safe zones, like rereading, because testing actively reveals our knowledge gaps. And psychologically, finding out what we don't know feels exactly like literal failure. It is a massive, massive emotional barrier. We are basically terrified to face the gaps in our knowledge, so we actively avoid the exact mechanism that's required to fix them. But we have to fundamentally reframe that fear. Seriously, here's the golden rule you need to remember. Struggle equals strengthened neural connections. That friction and difficulty you feel when trying to recall an answer, that isn't a sign of failure. From a neuroscience perspective, when you struggle to retrieve an answer, your brain is physically firing neurons and wrapping those connections in myelin, which makes the pathway faster and stronger for the future. Basically, if your studying feels easy and smooth, you aren't actually learning. You absolutely need the struggle.
Okay, Section 4, designing your study system. Systems over talent. Let's get into the actionable stuff. One of the most toxic myths in education is the talent myth. That belief that you simply are not a math person or you just aren't smart enough. Well, the reality is that genius-level learners aren't born with magically better brains. They just use better systems. And this brilliantly illustrates that skill and well-designed systems will beat raw talent every single time when it comes to studying, for sure.
Now, the absolute foundation of a genius-level system is something called spaced review. Without spaced review, your memory simply fades away. That's exactly what happens when we ask, what's left in your head when the notes are gone? Spaced review means actively retrieving information over several days. You're basically repeatedly forcing your brain to recall the data, which signals to your neural pathways that, hey, this information is important and it needs to stick around for the long haul.
The psychological reality here is that most of us fall into the trap of emotional studying. That's when you're pushing yourself relentlessly because you're anxious or exhausted. But the true genius move? That's strategic studying. This means utilizing a repeatable process that actually respects your brain's biological limits instead of constantly fighting them.
So you have a really distinct choice to make today. You can keep doing what's familiar, rereading, highlighting, and doing all that panicked emotional studying, and honestly, you'll just keep getting the exact same frustrating results. Or you can stop fighting your brain right now. You can commit to a strategic system that prioritizes active recall, embraces the friction of testing, and uses spaced review.
Let's leave off with one final deeply provocative thought from the book. If you keep studying the exact same way you did today, where will you be in 5 years? Will you still be spinning your wheels, or will you have mastered the mechanics of your own mind? Commit to a better system and start learning like a genius. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay focused, and I'll see you next time.